Hey everybody, Braden here bringing you a cheap opinion in politics, and today we're going to talk about the Neo Wars brought to you by Iran. And no, this is not sponsored by them whatsoever, if that's running in your head. Now, before we talk about all the attacks on the oil tankers and so forth, we need to backtrack a little bit and go back to May of 2018 when President Trump announced on Twitter that he was pulling out, that the United States was pulling out of the agreement, and that we would be slapping sanctions back on to Iran. Now, unknowns to most people, Iran and Europe were still in that agreement and abiding by it, at least from what the UN reports were stating. Now, fast forward to May of 2019 up till the present, and we've had 6 oil tanker attacks off the Strait of Hormuz, and we lost a drone, which we will have a brief moment of silence because that was over $100 million down the drain. Okay, so anyways, back to the story. Now the question comes, what would the president do? They shot down a U.S. drone. What are we going to do? So President Trump tweeted this that Friday, saying, "On Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites when I asked, how many will die? 150 people, sir," was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it. And the continuation of that tweet is him saying, not worth it, essentially. Now, what was the response from the administration? Essentially, they slapped on more sanctions onto Iran, and they also waged a cyber attack on the missile defense system of Iran. So that was the response the administration gave. Again, Trump, in same kind of strategy that he's using with North Korea of just, we got all the time in the world. We'll just see where it goes. Okay, I can get behind that. That's better than, going and, letting the drones in to avenge their kin. So that really leads into one of the first questions that has really popped up, which was in the media, was this the right response from the administration? And you're kind of sitting there going, I would say so. Yeah, it's better than, like I said earlier, sending drones in to avenge their kin. I don't know why I'm stuck on that. That just sounds kind of catchy, really. And look at the bright side. We lost the drone. That'll encourage members of Congress to slap 5 or 6 more of those in October's defense budget. So for next year. So it's not the end of the world. But secondly, is also the question of, if we were to go into Iran, can the president use the AUMF? Now, you might be asking yourself the first question of, what is Congress's fetish with acronyms? Well, that I can't answer. I don't know why. But secondly, I can answer, what is the AUMF? Well, the AUMF stands for the Authorized Use of Military Force. And what it does is basically what many people don't want to directly say, but I'll be honest about it. It's a blank check for the president in terms of foreign policy from Congress to go after and fight terrorists. It was passed in the aftermath of 9/11 to really go after the people that attacked us, Al-Qaeda. Not to mention that most of those hijackers were originally from Saudi Arabia. So, go figure. No connection whatsoever. But anyways, so we go into Afghanistan. We use it to go into Iran. Everybody's shocked that we would try and use it to go into not Iran, Iraq. Got to correct the record there. I meant Afghanistan and Iraq. So we use it to go into those countries. But then we start trying to decide if we're going to use it to go into Iran, and that's when Democrats and Republicans draw the line there. No. We can't use the AUMF for that. In fact, we should repeal the AUMF. Now, as much as I would agree with repealing the AUMF, again, I talked about in a previous video about consistency. Most people may not realize that we're using the AUMF not in just Afghanistan and Iraq, but we're using it in 5 other countries that apparently also attacked us on 9/11. That would be countries as Somalia, I got to count: Somalia, Niger, Yemen, Syria, and there's one more. And I'm kind of having a Rick Perry moment and trying to figure out which one. Oh, and Libya. There we go. See, it was Libya. Okay, it was Libya. And there's your 5 other countries that also attacked us on 9/11. Uh, Mike Pompeo, basically, which is our Secretary of State, Big Neo, very big Neo, one of the big Neos surrounding Trump, basically saying, there's that connection. And that's really the key word. It's the connection to Al Qaeda that Iran might have. Now, the reality is that Iran does fund terrorism. They very well do. Now, does this warrant us going into Iran? Well, I would argue that we should have a very legitimate reason to want to go into Iran. But this base question that people, even members of Congress, are debating whether or not the AUMF would allow the president to go into Iran. Why didn't they ask that question for those other 5 countries? I would argue the other 6 countries. I'd even throw Iraq into that question. But the reality of it is that the AUMF is used for 7 countries currently. It's what happens when you're fighting the war on terror. The terrorists go nuts and they go everywhere. But don't worry, we'll get them eventually. Might be a few decades, but that's kind of where we are currently. That's pretty much most of. I think those were 2 of the big things. Was one, people are questioning, was this the right response from Trump? I would argue, hey, it didn't end in sending drones in. And secondly, the question on the AUMF, can the president use it? Congress is the one in the 21st century that decided, you know what, I'd rather just focus on re-election, and so that whole legislating part, I'll let the president do it. And so that's what Congress decided, and it's hard to face that, but that is the truth. And as far as where we go from Iran and here, like I said, tensions are still high. I do know that Saudi Arabia, our great close ally that would never off U.S. journalists, has been upping their security too. And I saw that article too. But anyways, at the bottom I'll put the article for the Iranians basically saying, "Hey, okay, we're going back to stockpiling more yellow cake." And that's where we are for today. And that, my friends, is the reality of the world. And I wish you all a good 4th of July. And I'll see you next week.